Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, I'm your host, Morgan. First of all, I'm going to apologize in advance for any camera wobbling. I'm doing my best with the setup that I have, but it is a bit of a breezy day and my tripod is not exactly the most stable. If you missed my life update video, you can see that we are in a new setting because I've finally gotten my life together enough to build my little sitting area in my side yard. If you want more on that, please go look at the life update video. I don't want to yap about it here because we got a fairly in-depth topic to talk about today. There is a fairly massive controversy in the outdoor activism world right now because Patagonia, the outdoor apparel brand, is suing Pattie Gonia, a drag performer slash activist, for trademark infringement. A lot has been said. The situation is anything but simple, and there is a mountain of information to get through. So go ahead, grab a snack, get your snowflake drink of choice. Today I have a dulce de leche mocha with white coffee from Dutch Bros, and we can get into this. Before we sink our teeth into today's topic, please allow me a moment to shamelessly hype myself in all the social things. Or just jump to the timestamp on the screen if you want to skip to the good stuff. First of all, the YouTube things. If you find any value in this video at all, please consider giving it a like. If you have any thoughts to contribute to the conversation, please pop them down in the comment section below. I do really love reading those comments, both good and bad. It's all interesting. And then if you want to see more of me and my content recommended to you, consider tapping that subscribe button and perhaps even flirting with that bell so you get notifications when I post. I would actually really appreciate that. And if you want to find me elsewhere, I'm on other platforms as well. The links are in the description below. But if you really like what I do, I have a couple of ways that you can pitch into the greater Morgan Media empire. First of all, I do have a Patreon. It's mostly just blogs right now, but I am working on some other things and I'm open to suggestions, especially if you are a patron. And then there's also a free option to join if you just want a little taste for now. I also do have a GoFundMe to help pay the tuition for my master's program while I'm dealing with life. Like, I have a car that was totaled, so I don't have a vehicle here in SoCal right now. I have student loan payments for my bachelor's that I need to start paying on since all of the plans have basically been canceled, but we're not going to get into that here. And then just the the greater life that keeps happening. There's absolutely no pressure for anyone to contribute either to the Patreon or the GoFundMe though. I just need to mention it because if I don't, who will? Okay, let's go ahead and get back to the video now. Since this is a very dense topic, I do want to start by reading this HuffPost article together. I'm going to do my best to just read the article and then discuss afterwards, unlike the past videos where I have read articles and discussed as we went. But you know how I am by now, so let's go ahead and jump right into the article because, like I said, this is a very dense topic with a lot of information to go over. The title of this article is Patagonia versus Pattie Gonia, all about the corporation's lawsuit against the drag queen, and it was posted on June 3rd, 2026. Patagonia, the outdoor clothing and gear company, is suing drag queen Pattie Gonia for $1 for alleged trademark infringement after Gonia filed applications to use the name Pattie Gonia for apparel, online marketing, motivational speaking services, and more. These products and services compete directly with the products and advocacy upon which Patagonia built its Patagonia brand over the last 53 years, the lawsuit reads. According to the lawsuit, while Gonia and the water bottle company Hydro Flask were collaborating in 2022, Patagonia and Gonia had reached an agreement that Gonia was going to Refrain from selling Patagonia branded products or using fonts or designs that copy or are substantially similar to Patagonia's logos. The lawsuit alleges Gonia ignored that agreement and began selling merch under the Pattie Gonia brand. In 2025, Patagonia reached out to Gonia, but Patagonia alleges that it was clear Gonia wasn't going to comply with the agreement the two had made in 2022. Consumers are already confused about whether Patagonia is affiliated with Patagonia, the lawsuit reads. In a January statement, the lawsuit was originally filed. Patagonia said the lawsuit is necessary to protect their brand. We're not against art, creative expression, or commentary about our brand, the statement reads. We want Patty to have a long and successful career and make progress on issues that matter, but in a way that respects Patagonia's intellectual property and ability to use our brand to sell products and advocate for the environment. In a TikTok posted a week ago, Gonia said the lawsuit is not a quote brand conflict. Instead, it's a corporation trying to erase an activist. She continued saying the lawsuit is a betrayal of Patagonia's core mission, which is protect the home planet. Patagonia dropped the lawsuit, Gonia said in her TikTok, which had nearly 5 million views as of publication. Gonia said her drag persona started in 2018 when she put on a pair of heels while backpacking and then named herself after the region in South America. A name, she pointed out, predates the clothing brand by 500 years. She said the use of Patagonia's logo as her own was a fan parody art and that the agreement the two reached in 2022 was not a broad agreement about Gonia's future. Gonia said she believed that Patagonia waited until a time when anti-LGBTQ plus discourse is at an all-time high to fight her and expect no pushback. If Patagonia wants to celebrate Pride Month this year by taking a queer climate activist to federal court, then I am here to fight for myself and I am here to fight for us, Gonia said in her TikTok. Gonia asked her followers to join her in asking Patagonia to drop the lawsuit. After Gonia's TikTok, Patagonia said in a statement that it has a responsibility to protect the company. This matter is not about seeking financial gain, nor is it about challenging anyone's identity or right to advocacy, protest, or creative expression, the statement reads. The last thing we wanted was a legal fight with someone who shares our values, but we must protect our business and employees. Can everyone just give me a round of applause for just reading that article and not inserting my thoughts? Because I think I deserve that. But in all seriousness, this, even just from that overview, is a very complicated situation and a very complicated thing to be talking about. So I think that this article is a good introduction to everything that's going on. But the situation is very nuanced, so we need to break things down very carefully to have a meaningful discussion. And that is my goal here, to break things down to the best of my ability and at least attempt to have a meaningful and thoughtful discussion. Please keep that in mind throughout this whole video because I know that this is also a bit of a sensitive topic as well. I'm not trying to defend a major corporation. I'm not trying to really take sides. I'm trying to really pick it apart because there are a lot of emotions involved and a lot of things being said all over the place. But let's continue on because now it's time to answer the question, who or what is Patagonia? So Patagonia is an outdoor apparel company that has also branched out into other things as well. They do a lot of advocacy for the environment and things like that. They have a strong emphasis in general on activism, specifically activism that has to do with protecting the planet. And their Instagram bio reads, "We're in business to save our home planet." If you go to their website, you can see all of the advocacy that the company gets into and sponsors and things like that. Overall, I like Patagonia as a company. and I have for a while. I don't own anything Patagonia because I'm a broke bitch with rich bitches habits and tastes, but that's my problem. Now, who exactly is Patagonia? Well, Patagonia is a drag queen slash performance persona. She's also an advocate for the environment and an inclusive and diverse outdoor community per the About Me section of the various places or her website. And to keep things very clear throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to refer to Pattie Gonia as Pattie for the rest of this video. One thing I think the article could have done better is not refer to Pattie Gonia as Gonia. I think that got a little bit confusing as I was reading it out loud, but that's my own critique of that article. And also, to be clear, I'm a fan of Pattie. I've followed Pattie for a few years now, and I like the artistry, I like the advocacy and the community that Pattie has been growing online. But this whole thing just, it's very conflicting to me because these are two entities that I like. And I think that there are a lot of people out there feeling that way. But let's get into a bit of a timeline of everything going on because I think that's going to help. And I think that looking at the timeline will give us that kind of reference point before we start diving into the allegations and the lawsuit itself, since it's not as right now as it seems. So I did get this timeline from Reddit. The post itself linked below, description, all my sources are there, just like always, because, don't just take my word for anything. I'm just a gal on the internet, but we cite our sources here. This timeline breaks everything down from 2022 all the way through June 1st, 2026. And so it's really all of the events leading up to where we are today. At time of recording, it's June 5th, 2026, by the way. So if something else happens before I get this video posted, just know June 5th is the cutoff for the information for this video, but I may do an update or a pinned comment then. But I'm trying to get this out as quickly as possible. So let's just take a quick look at this timeline because, like I said, I do think it is very helpful for us to get that perspective and the extra background here. So 2022 to 2025, Patagonia says it spent several years discussing trademark concerns with climate activist and drag performer Pattie. The Win Wiley here is the legal name of the man behind Pattie. The company claims the two sides reached an understanding that allowed Pattie to continue advocacy work while avoiding confusion with Patagonia's brand. Okay, makes sense. So Patagonia has been trying to work with Pattie, at least according to the timeline, and we will see that more when we look at the lawsuit and stuff. So put a pin in that. This brings us then to late 2024. Patagonia alleges Pattie began selling branded apparel and continued using logos or designs that Patagonia believed were too similar to its own branding. We'll take a look at that when we look at the lawsuit as well, because Patagonia does have evidence in the lawsuit. That was the only place I could really find those examples, actually. And I did try to look before I looked in the lawsuit documents because I wanted to see if I could find it on my own easily. I couldn't. But again, put a pin in that. Fast forward to September 2025. Pattie filed trademark applications covering clothing, merchandise, marketing, and related activities under the name Pattie Gonia. Patagonia argues this moved beyond parody or activism in commercial branding that could create consumer confusion. Then, January 21st, 2026, Patagonia filed a trademark infringement lawsuit in the Federal Court of California. The company sought $1 in nominal damages, but also asked the court to block the trademark registrations and stop sales of allegedly infringing merchandise. Now, jump ahead a few months, and this brings us to May 2026, late May specifically, but we'll look at those specifics in just a moment. Patty publicly responded, accusing Patagonia of trying to erase an activist and arguing that the lawsuit contradicts the company's environmental values. Patty also disputed claims that Patagonia's logos were being used in a way that infringed the company's rights. And then on June 1st, 2026, Patagonia posted a public statement saying it wants to resolve the dispute and would drop the lawsuit if Patty withdraws trademark applications, stops using Patagonia related logos, and stops selling certain merchandise. The company also expressed regret for harm caused by the dispute within the LGBTQ plus community. That is really good. Let this be your reminder at this point to have a snack, take a sip of your drink. We all need that. We've been here a minute and we're still going to be here a minute, or at least I hope you're going to be here with me a minute. But now we've gotten through the timeline, so we have an idea of how everything has been playing out over the last few years. So let's take a look at Patty's videos and allegations, because in Patty's videos, she did make some allegations herself as well, and we will need to talk about it. I'm trying to leave most of my thoughts for the end, just as an FYI. On May 27th, 2026, Patty took to social media to, quote, break her silence on the lawsuit by posting 3 posts. 2 of them were image/text posts, which included slides with a statement, screenshots of a typed statement, and then an open letter to Patagonia that is also available on Patty's website. And then one video that is verbally presenting the statement in the slides. So, what we're going to do here, I will link everything, of course, but we're going to go ahead and read through the slides first and then the open letter, because I do think that that is useful, especially since we're trying to look at everything and be as thoughtful as possible here. The statement reads, "Hi everyone, it's Pattie Gonia. Today I'm breaking my silence about the lawsuit that the multi-billion-dollar corporation Patagonia has filed against me, a drag queen and climate activist, for trademark infringement. Patagonia told the media they're only suing me for $1. What they're actually trying to do is take away my name permanently and threaten me with more than $1 million in legal fees. This is not a brand conflict. This is a corporation trying to erase an activist. This is how corporations bully individuals who cannot match their resources. Because this would take away not only my activism and my career, but also the livelihoods of the team I employ, this is a betrayal of Patagonia's core mission, because if they're in business to save the home planet, why are they suing a climate activist? Over the last 4 months since the lawsuit was filed, I have stayed silent, courteous, and worked every channel I had to resolve this without going to court. But in the end, I had 2 choices. 1, the erasure of my name, my advocacy, my community, and everyone I employ. Or 2, fight for myself and fight for us. So I'm fighting, and I'm inviting you to join me in a simple call to action. Patagonia, drop the lawsuit. And I want to tell you how this story started. Because this story does not start with the lawsuit. It starts in 2018 when I put on a pair of heels on a backpacking trip and created my drag persona, Pattie Gonia, named after a region in South America called Patagonia, a brand that predates both me and the clothing brand by 500 years. Since 2018, I have built a community of more than 3 million people, a nonprofit teaching allyship in the outdoors, hired more than 600 artists and activists, toured drag shows nationwide about climate solutions, and together we've raised more than 3.7 million for nonprofits. So here is the part that made my jaw drop. Patagonia, a multi billion dollar corporation, went to federal court in January to say that I am causing irreparable harm to their brand by doing motivational speaking services in support of environmental sustainability and organizing, arranging, and conducting trail and hiking events. Let's talk about that irreparable harm because there's three things you need to know. One, first, their claims of trademark infringement. I have never used their logo, font, or anything from their brand on our merch website. Instead, the lawsuit cherry picks a few examples of playful parody and fan art and tries to spin those into some kind of vast use of their logo. Drag is built on parody, puns, and jokes, but I'm willing to never parody their logo ever again, aka never give them free PR ever again. 2. Next, let's talk about the agreement or understanding that people are saying I broke. There was no agreement. In 2022, when I was collaborating with a third party, Patagonia asked me to follow certain terms, and I did. That wasn't a broad agreement about my future. 3. Lastly, my trademark application. I filed a trademark application not to compete with a multi billion dollar corporation, but because of what happened to a drag queen named Lexi Love, whose name was taken from her by a third party after RuPaul's Drag Race. Within weeks, her bookings canceled, music pulled, social media gone. I filed to make sure that never happened to me, not because of Patagonia, because of anyway. I want to pause right there for a second because I do have some thoughts that I don't think can wait for the end. Because I do see a difference between the drag race example that Patty brought up here and the situation, because Patagonia is a fairly well-known brand, and as I have seen on the interwebs in the discourse, it is part of a corporation and brand owner's job to protect their brand and their trademark. I meant to say like trademark owner, but you know what I mean. So I do think that that is a bit of an uneven example, but I can see where Patty's coming from wanting to protect their drag persona. I just, I don't know. I do have other thoughts because, like I said, I don't think this situation is black and white. And a quick spoiler for later, I don't think either side is completely wrong or completely right in this situation, like so much of life. But let's continue on because this is where we get into some of the actual allegations from Patty's side that, again, spoiler, some of them don't sit completely right with me, especially after I have sifted through everything, but I will expand upon that for sure at the end because I do have some actual notes later in my outline to help keep me a little more organized and focused. And I know this is a long statement. That's why we're reading this as opposed to just playing the video because, YouTube copyright stuff. It's one of those things that's, if I have a version for me to read to you, I'm going to do that versus playing someone else's video, even though I know that I'm covered under fair use, yada yada, all that stuff. Um, Before we continue on, based on things that I have looked at, it also seems like there is a very thin line between parody and trademark infringement, and that line, which side of it you're on, seems to have to do with profit and money. But I think I have more thoughts on that later. If I don't, I'll assuredly talk about it more when I get to my final thoughts section. So hang in there. Let's continue on with this post. And aka statement. So let's go. Now let's talk timing. Isn't it interesting that the multi-billion-dollar corporation Patagonia chose this exact moment, the height of anti-LGBTQ plus politics and attacks on the environment, to sue me? They've known about me for 8 years, and the impact of this timing right now is serious and it's real. I think they looked at the political moment and thought they could pull this off without much pushback. But if Patagonia wants to celebrate Pride this year by taking a queer climate activist to federal court, then I'm here to fight for myself and to fight for us. So, Patagonia leadership, I want to speak directly to you. In 2022, founder Yvonne Chouinard, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I'm doing my best here. I've never heard it spoken before. Gave his company away to the planet to fight the climate crisis, transferring control into what's called a purpose trust. That's one of the reasons I like Patagonia, by the way. But let's continue. I want to ask the people currently running the company a genuine question. Is this what your founder had in mind? Is spending the resources of that trust on lawyers and federal court filings to erase a climate activist, saving the home planet? Is this what Yvonne gave away his fortune for? Is this what he and his children, who now sit in leadership on the board and the Purpose Trust, believe they built? Yvonne said something that I think his current leadership needs to read right now. You are what you do, not what you say you are. That is not my quote. That is his. And if this lawsuit is what saving the planet looks like to Patagonia's current leadership, then one of us has profoundly misunderstood the assignment, and it's not me. I want to pause again. I know I said I wasn't going to insert my thoughts, but y'all know how I am by now. I understand that the company has this trust and the purpose is supposed to be saving the planet, but the company is still a company with a trademark to protect. So I would presume that the legal fees here are part of that trust's uh, budget. That's the word I'm looking for. Because at the end of the day, if you let your trademark go, which not protecting your trademark, from my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legally person, but this is my understanding based on the things that I've looked at and statements by actual lawyers, then you effectively lose your trademark, and that would also be bad for the environment and the whole purpose and the values of the company as well. But those are just my thoughts reading that I think are relevant to pop in here. So let's continue on with the statement, because now we have Hattie's call to action coming up. And to my community, here's what I need from you right now. 1. Join me in telling Patagonia, drop the lawsuit, make your voice heard everywhere Patagonia is, and let me be very clear, do so in a respectful and peaceful way. I do appreciate that Pattie made that clear, that they want it to be respectful and peaceful, because I just think that that's a good thing, because there are a lot of influencers out there that don't care, and you know how followings get. They get rabid. But this is one of the reasons why I do like Pattie, is that Pattie does seem to call for class in a way, if that makes sense. That being said, again, I don't think Pattie's completely right here, and that's probably already apparent based on my thoughts that I've inserted, but we're going to continue on. 2. Do not take this out on Patagonia store employees. They didn't choose this. It's squarely on the shoulders of the corporate leaders who have failed their employees and the company's core values. And in fact, to every Patagonia employee watching this, you built something people believe in. I hope you will use your voice inside your organization right now. 3. This is just part 1 to the story. What I have not told you yet is bigger than what I have. Stay tuned. To close this out, I want to go a bit off script because I want to tell you something I probably should not say. I am afraid and I am frustrated. This is so much wasted time and money that could be spent fighting for the planet, and instead, Patagonia is taking a climate activist to court when I have offered them everything I could to avoid this. They chose this, not me. While I don't know what will happen from here, I do know that they have more money and more lawyers, and they will use their full force. Patagonia is one of the first things in my life I am genuinely, deeply proud of. And the idea that it could all be taken away is my worst case scenario. Because if you have ever created something that mattered to you, a name, a community, a version of yourself that finally felt real, I think you know what that fear feels like. My name is Pattie Gonia. I chose it, I built it, I've earned it, and I am not going anywhere. Patagonia dropped the lawsuit. So that was a very long, very emotional post. And I don't say that in a bad way because it's clear that Patty is very frustrated. And if you go and watch the part 1 video, you will see and hear the frustration in Patty's voice. That video is the first way I heard about any of this situation. And yeah, I shared it because, like I said, I'm a fan of Patty. I like Patagonia as a company, and I felt the emotion too. I'm not immune to getting swept up in things on the internet. So if you're sitting here and feeling kind of weird about the whole situation because you're initially on one side or the other, but you like both entities, that's okay. I'm just here to tell you that. I know there's people, if you're looking at the discourse, that will tell you it's not okay, but it is okay. So let's continue on and look at the open letter to Patagonia that Patty also posted on that same day, because I do think that it's interesting to look at as well. It is much shorter than the statement, I promise, and it's also available on Patty's website if you want to go look at it yourself or go to her Instagram because it's there too. Okay, this is take 2 on reading the letter because the semi just pulled into my little cul-de-sac because my neighbors seem to be getting a big delivery, but it's fine. It's fine. So let's try to get through this letter before that semi turns its engine back on. Open letter to Patagonia Inc. To Patagonia Inc. CEO Ryan Gellert, the Patagonia Board of Directors, and Patagonia Purpose Trust trustees. I'm writing today to appeal to your corporate and personal values. You lead an exceptional company, and the Chouinard family has done something unique and admirable in creating the Purpose Trust with one goal: to protect our planet. I've had the honor of meeting some, but not all of you. So, a quick introduction here. I am a drag artist and climate activist named Pattie Gonia. I've spent 8 years building something I am proud of: a community of more than 3 million people, a nonprofit, 3.7 million raised for environmental causes, and bringing hundreds of thousands of people into the outdoors who never felt like they belonged there. But now, after 8 years, some executives at your company and your outside lawyers have decided that I must cease to exist. They filed a federal trademark lawsuit against me in January. The lawsuit hurts not only me and everything I've built, but also the people I employ, the millions of people I try to inspire, and dozens of nonprofit organizations that I have supported. When Patagonia Inc. sued me without warning in January, I started immediately pursuing an amicable settlement. I have believed from the beginning that there is room for an agreement that protects your trademark while letting me keep my name and my work. I believe that still today. If your executives and lawyers continue to pursue this lawsuit, I will make one thing clear. They are willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to grind me down so far that I can't continue to operate. Is that how you believe your company's financial resources and brand equity should be spent? I'm afraid, but I'm also frustrated. Our home planet needs every dollar and every moment of time we can give to it right now. We can't afford to waste time and money fighting among ourselves. Patagonia says it's in business to save our home planet. And Mr. Chouinard, you said you are what you do, not what you say you are. The lawsuit serves no good purpose. Let's make peace and get back to our common love of the planet, including our namesake region in South America named Patagonia. With respect and hope, I ask you to intervene and drop this lawsuit today. We did it. We got through the posts, and as you can see, there are some allegations that Pattie made towards Patagonia, and we will get into Patagonia's allegations when we get into the lawsuit, but there's still a couple more things that I want to go through before we get to the lawsuit. I'm so sorry for the noises in the background if you can hear them. Things are getting unloaded from the semi and all that jazz, but we're getting through it. So, whoops. Let's take a moment to have a sip and have a snack. 3 days later, on May 30th, 2026, Pattie posted her part 2 video stating her offer for Patagonia to drop the lawsuit. So let's go ahead and actually watch the video because there's not a written statement to go on with it.
Watch this.
And we've never tried to stop that. When Pattie started selling apparel, then started a business, then filed trademark applications for the exclusive use of Patagonia in apparel and environmental advocacy, and then wouldn't have a conversation. This is really a problem.
Lies. This is straight up lies, because the first time we heard from Patagonia after filing our trademark application was 4 months later, when their internal lawyer emailed to say that Patagonia had filed the lawsuit against me for trademark infringement. So there was no conversation, not because I wasn't willing to have it, but because Patagonia, you never reached out. You blindsided us. So I'll tell you what's really going on here. Either you, Ryan Geller, CEO of Patagonia, are lying to the public, or the people under you are lying directly to your face. Speaking of trademarks, not only did I submit my trademark to the US Patent and Trademark Office, but it passed the first step, and the examining attorney found it, and I quote, not confusingly similar to Patagonia's mark. Patagonia, from the beginning, all I've wanted is peace. And I don't think you're entitled to what I'm about to do, and you certainly don't deserve it for your extremely disappointing behavior, but I'm gonna offer it to you right now. You're saying the issue is the trademark? I'm willing to drop the trademark. And if I do that, you drop the lawsuit. Because in that same video of you speaking on stage to other corporate CEOs, you also said this.
The issue that we're wrestling with isn't about trying to silence somebody. The issue that we're wrestling with is not trying to take somebody's identity away.
So if this is true, that it's about the trademark, then you'll drop the lawsuit. But if you don't, then we'll know what this is really about. Patagonia trying to erase my identity and my whole community's activism. I'm handing you what you're asking for, so it's your move, Patagonia. The offer is on the table, and now the whole world is watching. What are you gonna do?
Good news, the semi is gone, so hopefully we can get through the rest of this without any more unexpected loudness, but we're filming outdoors. Let's continue on. As you can see from that video, Pattie is obviously upset. And again, that's completely valid. Like, I would be upset like this too. But in all of her posts, she does still urge her followers to join her in asking Patagonia to drop the lawsuit. And Pattie's supporters have made many supportive posts and comments. I'm not going to collect or show them here because, frankly, I don't really think that's relevant. And admittedly, I did share Pattie's stuff myself at the beginning before I really learned more about the situation. And I was already going to kind of make a video about the situation. And then I started learning more. So after Pattie made that second video, Patagonia did go ahead and publicly respond. On June 1st, 2026, Patagonia posted their response to Pattie's public posts. The post reads, "There's a lot going around about the lawsuit we filed in January to protect our trademarks, and we owe you an update. We wish this lawsuit had not been necessary, and we want to acknowledge any hurt it has caused, especially in the LGBTQ plus community. We don't want to argue trademark law on social media. Importantly, we continue to want to resolve this. As we have said to Pattie, we can do that if they withdraw all trademark applications, stop using our logos, and stop selling and promoting apparel and other products as Pattie Gonia. If we can agree on this, we can work out everything else, and Pattie Gonia could continue as a performer and activist. We share common ground with them, including the goal of saving our home planet and creating a more inclusive outdoors. Honestly, I think that this is a pretty uh, it's not a satisfying response to everybody, and that's to be expected, especially from a corporate account, because corporations are going to be very careful in everything they do. And unfortunately, that is something that is just a reality of dealing with a corporation. So, naturally, Pattie did respond right away as well, and we're going to look at that response right now. Pattie's response to Patagonia was this post, and it reads, Patagonia just posted their offer to settle. When I told you that they were trying to erase my advocacy, their bullet number 3 is what I was talking about. Stop selling and promoting apparel and other products as Patagonia. Patagonia is not just talking about my upcycled t-shirt merch in that bullet point. They're talking about the partnership work with other brands that I've done for years to pay for the education, advocacy, and activism that me and my team do. If I can't do partnerships as Patagonia, it breaks the whole ecosystem of advocacy and community engagement. And they understand this because their work is built on the exact same model: advocacy work funded through commercial work. Bullet points 1 and 2, I've already said I would agree to, but bullet 3, absolutely not. No deal, Patagonia. At the point that Pattie's response to Patagonia was posted, I had not seen anything from Patagonia yet. So I had to actually go look up what bullet 3 even said. And that is actually what made me realize this whole situation is a lot more complicated than Pattie was making it seem. Again, to be clear, I am not accusing Pattie of intentionally spreading misinformation. I am not defending a large corporation. Still, two sides need to be examined before conclusions are drawn. And like I've been saying, I will expand on my thoughts further at the end. But for now, let's take a closer look at the actual lawsuit because it is available. So, on the Patagonia Works website, there is the press release post protecting our brand update on trademark activity from January 21st, 2026, which is the day that the lawsuit was filed. So I want to go ahead and take a look at that, and we'll kind of look at some of the legal documents. This video is already getting long, so I don't want to dive too deeply into them because there is some other stuff that we're going to look at that I think sums it up really well. But there are a couple of things I want to look at, specifically some emails and other evidence that Patagonia has included in their initial complaint. This is the press release that Patagonia released the day that they filed. And it says, today Patagonia filed a trademark infringement lawsuit against the entrepreneur, drag queen, and activist Pattie Gonia. While we wish we didn't have to do this and actively engaged with Pattie for several years to avoid this, it has become necessary to protect our brand we have spent the last 50 years building. We're not against art, creative expression, or commentary about our brand. We want Pattie to have a long and successful career and make progress on issues that matter, but in a way that respects Patagonia's intellectual property and ability to use our brand to sell products and advocate for the environment. For more than 3 years, Patagonia engaged in open dialogue with Pattie to discuss ways she could continue her environmental and social advocacy, brand deals, and other work without infringing on our trademark. We thought we'd reached an agreement, and for a while it worked. Unfortunately, in late 2024, Pattie started selling Patagonia branded apparel online, continued to create and use versions of our logo. Our outreach to Pattie asking her to stick to our agreement was refused. A subsequent note asking to discuss potential ways forward got no response. Then in September of 2025, Patagonia filed a trademark application seeking the exclusive rights to use the brand Patagonia to sell clothing and apparel, promote environmental activism, engage in online marketing and endorsements, and more. These rights would directly overlap with the work we do and the products we provide, for which we have long-standing rights and trademark registrations. To maintain our own rights, we must prevent others from copying our brands and logos. If we do not, we risk losing the ability to defend our trademarks entirely. To put a finer point on it, we cannot selectively choose to enforce our rights based on whether we agree with a particular point of view. Inconsistent enforcement might prevent us from stopping entities like the oil and gas lobby, counterfeiters, hate groups, and other bad actors from using the Patagonia name and logo. These are not hypothetical examples. They are real instances of past trademark infringements we successfully stopped only because we have been consistent in defending our rights. For these reasons, Patagonia's use of a near copy of our name commercially, including as a brand for environmental advocacy, and her trademark application seeking to obtain the exclusive right to use that name going forward, pose long-term threats to Patagonia's brand and our activism. For more information on the situation, you can view our legal filing here or below. I have read through the lawsuit, and there's a lot that we're not going to dive into because it is 37 pages long, but there are a couple of things that I do want to look at, and there are other things that we're going to look at that help sum it up. And honestly, a lot of what we've already been looking at now does help sum things up, especially that press release. So the first thing I want to look at is on page 3 of this lawsuit, where they're talking specifically about the launch of Patagonia or PatagoniaMerch.com. And as you can see, the website is branded Patagonia Merch, and you can see the shirts that say like Patagonia Hiking Club and things like that. And if you continue scrolling down to page 4, you will see that they have found examples from social media of Pattie parodying and using their logo, despite the fact that Pattie had said in her statements that they were always parodies, that she never used the logo. And it's like, okay, so she has changed the logo. The font is not exactly the same as Patagonia's font, but it is very, very close. And I think that is really where you're towing the line of parody versus trademark infringement, especially since this is now a commercial venture. And as Patagonia had said in their statement, they can't police their trademark. Um, they can't they have to police it full stop all over. It doesn't really matter if they agree with the values of the entity using their logo, because even to me, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a legal person, I don't own a trademark, these do look really close. So I raise an eyebrow at that stuff too, because yeah, it can be fan art, it can be all that, and maybe you make a cute thing for yourself for your Instagram or whatever. I doubt they would have much of a problem with that. It seems to me, reading through this, the problem came with the financial aspect, and of course the trademark seems to be what really forced Patagonia's hands, at least if my understanding of everything is correct, because they do give some examples of people being confused. And I'll even admit, when I first found Pattie, I thought that she was associated with Patagonia at first. I realized very quickly that she wasn't, but yeah, I understand the point that they're making there. However, I still raise an eyebrow at the legitimacy of it, because most people will figure it out pretty quickly. But on page 5, I really want to look at this because this goes into detail about the 2022 Hydro Flask branding thing. So, page 5, line 17. Patagonia tried to work with Pattie to avoid this outcome. In February 2022, when Hydro Flask was discussing a collaboration with Pattie, Hydro Flask contacted Patagonia to ensure Patagonia did not object to the proposed collaboration. That is very smart of Hydro Flask. These are two corporations trying to make sure that everything is above board. That is what they should be doing. The parties met and discussed restrictions on the use of Pattie Gonia to protect against confusion about the source of products or advocacy connected to Pattie. Pattie confirmed an understanding that she must refrain from selling Pattie Gonia branded products or using fonts or designs that copy or are substantially similar to Patagonia's logos. Ultimately, Pattie ignored the agreement she had reached with Patagonia and began selling products under the Patagonia brand in early 2025. After seeing Pattie selling Patagonia branded apparel on Pattie's Patagonia or PatagoniaMerch.com website, Patagonia again asked that defendants stop commercial use of the Patagonia name and abide by the 2022 understanding. Within several months, Pattie's actions confirmed that she did not intend to abide by the understanding the parties reached in February 2022. Pattie restocked a full line of Patagonia apparel and filed a trademark application confirming Pattie's intention to secure rights in competing and confusing brand, used to sell many of the same types of products and services that Patagonia has offered for decades. Despite Patagonia's efforts to avoid this dispute, it is left with no choice but to seek relief from the court due to Pattie's refusal to honor the parties' prior understanding, the commercialization of the Patagonia brand, the use of the brand on confusingly similar products and services, and Pattie's use of Patagonia's logos. To prevent further damage to consumers, Patagonia and its brand Patagonia further alleges the following. And so then after this, you get into the specific complaints, which we're not going to read through because I don't think we need to. But I do want to look at page 18 of this lawsuit because there are some emails included here. And that was something that I did find a bit interesting, even though there's only 2. At least I think there are. Hold on, I'm scrolling. I may be wrong. And they give more examples of Pattie's merch that they have issue with. And yeah, if what they're saying about the 2022 understanding is true, then Pattie is in the wrong here, unfortunately. But here is an email from Patagonia from February 9th of 2022. Hi all, Pattie, thank you for the call today. I really appreciate the time and thoughtful conversation. Thank you for reaching out to us on this and for your patience as I work through this on my end. Also, want to note that email is horrible for nuance and open conversation. So if there is anything in here that comes off differently than our conversation, Pattie, that is solely a failure in my drafting. Please let me know if something in here strikes you as different than our conversation and let's discuss it. Patagonia has no objection to the relationship between Hydro Flask and Patagonia, in particular the work described in your email last week. But we do ask that the parties, 1, not use or otherwise display Patagonia's logos, not use the Bellway font in the content that is created, including an example here since asked about this when I called him this afternoon, not use Patagonia in any form on product. I hope the 3 points above give you a clear sense of where we are coming from and give you confidence to move forward with your partnership and do great work together. If there are any questions as the work progresses, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Gratefully, and then redacted. As you notice, names seem to be redacted. And then there's a quick email from Pattie Gonia. Robert, thank you all so much for your handling of this issue and for including us in the discussion. We really appreciate each of you so much. Cannot wait to get things going. Super excited. And then there are a couple more short emails. One from Patagonia saying, one clarification addition I should make to this regarding use of Patagonia's logos. Patagonia would ask that the parties not use Patagonia's logos or any substantially similar designs, like the mask meme logo we discussed, Patty, that used the mountain silhouette and Bellway font. I think that additional language accurately reflects our conversations, and sorry for not being more clear in the first go at this. As before, I welcome any conversation / feedback. I just didn't want to leave my potential miscommunication hanging out there. And then again, Patty responded saying, thank you for the clarification and all that jazz. So it seemed like there was a very clear understanding that Patagonia is super cool with Patty doing her work as long as that boundary was kept. And the answer to Patagonia's claims are also available if you want to look at them. I did, but it's a lot of denying the claims, basically, which is understandable. I mean, if you're a defendant, you're going to deny the claims. But I don't think that we need to read through everything. I mean, this video is already like gonna be over an hour long at this point because I got lots to say, but I do want to talk about some of the online discourse, specifically over on Threads. But I do want to talk about one comment that I saw on Patty's part 2 video from um, Misha Collins. If you don't know who Misha Collins is, he is an actor and an advocate for a lot of things. He played Castiel in Supernatural. I'm a bit of a fangirl for Misha, so I saw this comment actually as I was rewatching Patty's part 2 video while filming this video, and I think that this is something that I really want to look at here because I think Misha's speaking a lot of logic in this comment. I am a to the death LGBTQIA plus community advocate, and my take is that this is totally unfair to Patagonia. Patagonia is one of the best companies out there, an incredibly successful company whose owners decided to turn it into a nonprofit that would channel 100% of its profits toward advancing environmental and social justice causes. Patty, this is not about erasing your identity. It's about you weaponizing keywords profit off of your spoof of Patagonia's name. You taking that name is your prerogative, of course, but you trying to create market confusion and profit off of that name with outdoor apparel is another matter. Perhaps Patagonia's legal team didn't handle this as delicately as they should have. But for you to claim it's about erasing your identity is BS. That undermines the cause and the community. I guarantee you, if a straight white male outdoor enthusiast named Pattie Gonia tried to trademark an apparel company with a logo that looked confusingly similar to Patagonia's, the company would have also filed a lawsuit. And in so doing, there would have been absolutely no blowback from anyone. And I do think that Misha has a point here, if I'm honest. And I think that he put it a lot more eloquently than I could have, because there are strong allegations going on both sides. I mean, from Patty herself, there's the allegation that Patagonia is trying to erase an LGBTQ artist and all of that, and all of this going on or around Pride Month. Those are very strong, very serious allegations. And then there's other discourse going on specifically on Threads where I saw it first, but I've also seen it in other social media places as well, where there are other like environmental activists even calling Pattie a grifter and pointing out that Pattie waited to be public about this until just before Pride Month. So I do see where some of that anger is coming from. I don't know that I would go so far as to call Pattie a grifter, but I got feelings about the timing of Pattie going public as well. But we'll get into that in a little bit, because there is one post that, again, is kind of on the long side from the leftist lawyer that I really want to go through or read through here, because a lot of my thoughts are better communicated through this post, or this post resonated with me, especially as I was learning about the lawsuit and all that. And again, this is a lawyer breaking things down, referring to other lawyers and stuff as well. And they refer to another article with other lawyers talking about it that I will link here, that we're not going to read through today, I promise. So let's read through this post. It is 15 little posts long. We're going to get through it as quickly as possible, I pinky promise. So, as promised, here's my thread on Patagonia, Pattie Gonia, and why I think both sides actually are in the wrong now that I've read the answer. Below is a link to both the complaint and the answer so you can see both documents together. It'll expire on June 30th. I will put this link in my description, but again, it'll expire on June 30th if you're watching this video after that. I'm sorry, but let's continue. Let's start with what an answer is. A proper answer isn't the defendant's side of the story. Instead, it's an admission or denial of each of the individual facts alleged in the complaint. We won't know both sides fully until we go through discovery, so even now there's a lot we don't know. That said, the fact it's an answer and not a different kind of responsive pleading like a motion to dismiss tells us three important things. First, it tells us that there is no written coexistence agreement or other proper written contract between the parties. The complaint says that there was an agreement but doesn't attach one. And if you read the complaint carefully, you'll see the agreement they reference is just a series of emails. Now, pleading rules generally require that if there is a contract that is the basis of a claim, you have to attach that contract to the complaint. When you don't, the other side files a motion to dismiss, asking the court to strike your complaint and refile it with the contract attached. Here, that didn't happen. Instead, Pattie Gonia just answered denying the existence of any agreement and saying the email communications were just that, emails. That answer, instead of a motion to dismiss, plus the wording of the complaint and the fact there's no claim for breach of contract in the complaint, means there was never a written agreement. Second, Pattie's lawyers aren't the greatest. How do I know this? From the first affirmative defenses. Yes, this is a pet peeve of mine, and I'm being somewhat pedantic, but I'm not wrong. Failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted is big law boilerplate as the first affirmative defense in every answer they file. It's also well established in case law as not a proper affirmative defense, and many federal circuit courts will happily strike that defense if the plaintiff asks. The reason it's not a proper affirmative defense is that if your complaint failed to state a claim upon which relief could be granted, the other side would have filed a motion to dismiss instead of an answer. Let me rephrase. Failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted is legalese for, even if everything you say is true, you can't win. But that's what motions to dismiss are for. By answering instead, you necessarily concede that if what they say is true, they can win. To put it a different way, a motion to dismiss says, even if what you say is true, you can't sue me for that. An answer says, that's not what happened. You can't do both at the same time through affirmative defenses. Every time a defendant tries that with me, I file a motion to strike, and it's pretty much always granted. It's just a waste of time. Third, Pattie's answer basically is, that's not what happened, with a couple of wrinkles. In addition, there are the expected defenses. Fair use, which I won't go into because it's already been discussed ad nauseum on here, and no likelihood of confusion. But what's interesting is that there's also a defense of waiver, latches, and unclean hands, which is legalese for Patagonia. You're also responsible for us being here. It is possible that's boilerplate, sure, but the fact that we now know there was never a written contract between them concerning this IP is extremely interesting. I mentioned yesterday that I think on the merits of the claims, Alexandra Roberts and Mark McKenna, who are experts in this, are right when they say in this article that this isn't an open and shut case for Patagonia. It really could go either way. Rocky Retrograde Esquire said something similar yesterday too, but I'm going to tell you what I think happened based on what we know and why they're both in the wrong. It's just a guess on my part, but it's an educated one. Here's what I think happened. It's undisputed that the two sides discussed a contract of some kind. It's also undisputed that contract never was reduced to a proper writing. That is, there was no signed agreement. For a company the size of Patagonia, that was a massive oversight. Either no agreement was reached, so there was nothing to finalize, or Patagonia's lawyers dropped the ball and never prepared one on the agreed terms. But for some reason, and we don't know because we don't have the full email conversation, that crucial final step never happened. There was never a signed written contract. The problem based on the pleadings is that Patagonia almost certainly thought an agreement was reached, and Patty almost certainly thought there wasn't, which, by the way, is the kind of disagreement that is why we have written contracts in the first place. Rather than either side trying to clarify, Patagonia spent a couple of years doing nothing and relying on an email chain. And Patty's side thought, well, guess the deal's off then, and went ahead to trademark Pattie Gonia, that from a legal perspective left Patagonia no real choice but to file suit. So there are the questions we don't have the answer to and why we still don't know who is right. 1. Why was the final agreement never reduced to writing? If Patagonia's lawyers drop the ball, there are going to be issues of waiver, latches, and acquiescence, which are all legalese for we're bound by what we didn't do. If everyone just agreed they didn't need one, that is unbelievably sloppy work for a billion-dollar corporation. And if there was no agreement at all, Patagonia is lying in its complaint. Regardless, Patagonia dropped the ball in an incredibly bizarre and preventable way. 2. Why did Patagonia think the deal was off? If terms were agreed to in an email chain and just never finalized, as Rocky Retrograde put it yesterday, Patty had to know that acting as though the whole thing never happened would eventually be poking a bear. Did Patty know that Patagonia thought there was a deal? Or did negotiations just end in a way that made the conclusion everyone is walking away a reasonable one? We just don't know. And that's before we get to fair use and likelihood of confusion elements, which aren't clear cut and really could go either way. So, no, this isn't a case of one side being obviously right and the other being obviously wrong. This case is here, as with many cases, because both sides did things to end up here. I really like this post from the leftist lawyer because it does break everything down in a way that even little non-legally peasants like me can understand. And I do agree that it does sound like both Patagonia and Patty are likely in the wrong in different ways. And I also wonder why, if in 2022 there was an agreement, why was it never put formally in writing? Why was a contract never put into place so that something like this didn't happen, or there was actually a legal document to look back on and say, no, 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 this was our agreement? But we don't have those answers. I presume if and when this case goes to trial, which it looks like it almost assuredly will at this point, then maybe we'll get that answer. But as of right now, that's just one of the big question marks we have. So, in my very non expert opinion, it does look like Patty has definitely crossed that line separating parody and trademark infringement, especially looking at those emails between Patagonia and Patty at the time of the Hydro Flask collab. Because also, from what I have seen, and I think I touched on this earlier, parody is protected until money gets involved. And then once money gets involved, things aren't as clear because, money complicates everything. But then we need to look at Patty accusing Patagonia of trying to silence them because she's a drag artist. And I just, I don't think she has the evidence to back up that claim, or not necessarily because she's a drag artist, but that they're trying to silence a queer drag artist advocate. And again, I don't think she has the evidence to back up that claim. And that is a very big, very serious claim to be made. And maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, I will totally retract that statement. But to me, it does seem like Patty's public posts have been fueled more by emotion than anything else, which again, I get it. I would be emotional if I were in Patty's shoes right now. And I can't say that I would be making the most logical decisions as far as what I post and what I ask from my community. But I also need to touch on the fact that I take issue with the rhetoric around Pride Month here, and there are other people who have pointed this out online. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to say that Patty's a grifter who waited until just before Pride Month on purpose, knowing that that would get people the most upset. But the fact that this lawsuit was filed back in January and that there was that publicly posted press release. Sure, it's not like on social media or whatever, because it seems like Patagonia would have preferred to solve this as privately as possible. That's me interpreting their posts and the everything of it. So take that with a grain of salt. But because of how Patty's posts were worded and when they were posted, I did kind of assume that the lawsuit had like just been filed in that time, because it wasn't exactly clear to me that that had been going on since January at first. And if that were true, that that post had just gotten filed, like even like a week or two prior in April, sorry, May, June, months are hard, guys, but if it had been posted or filed just before Pride Month, yeah, that would be a massive slap in the face to the LGBTQ plus community, being so close to Pride Month. But the formal timeline doesn't really back up that claim. They filed in January, from what it seems, not too long after the uh, trademark application was filed. And from, again, my non-expert opinion, that seems like a reasonable timeline for the legal wheels to turn and get things going. And then, honestly, based on Patagonia's own posts and even the wording in the lawsuit itself, it seems like Patagonia actually supports Patty and their shared values, and that at the end of the day, they are still a corporation protecting their trademark, and that is a corporate obligation. And if I'm understanding everything correctly, it seems that what Patagonia is actually asking Patty is to stop using Patagonia in any parody of the Patagonia logo and branding and on merch, and to drop the Patagonia trademark, but not necessarily stop performing as Patagonia. So now I have to ask, and I've seen this other places as well, why not have a brand with just Patty or Miss Gonia for merch? Patty's merch website currently, today, June 5th, 2026, just says Patty merch, and the URL is pattymerch.com. Now, Patty's official website is still pattygonia.net, but the merch itself, the money maker, as you say, or speak, or as we speak, the money maker website, the merch website is Pattie Merch, which, based on what I'm seeing, if she goes with that branding, that would work for merch and stuff, and she could still perform as Patagonia. It doesn't seem like Patagonia has any issue with her as a performer and all of that. It's just the trademark and the financial part of it needs to be legally a different entity and commercially a different entity, which would make sense, honestly. Now, however, I am also skeptical that Patagonia as a brand would cause real confusion or competition for Patagonia, because, like I've seen mentioned in discourse online, um or excuse me, put a pause in that bullet point. I'm just skeptical because it didn't take me very long to figure it out. Oh, these are two separate entities. Got it. Drag performer. I think people are smarter than corporations give them the credit for, honestly. But I have also seen it mentioned in some posts in the online discourse that Patagonia missed an opportunity to collaborate with an artist and activist who shares their core values. And yeah, I do agree with that. But I think that if they chose to do that and um, kind of connect the two puzzle pieces there, that would be the thing that strikes confusion, because a collaboration with that could, in some people's minds, mean that Patty is always associated with Patagonia, and that wouldn't necessarily be true. So I do understand them not formally collaborating or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I do hope this whole thing gets solved. I do still like Patagonia as a brand and the values that the company stands for. And I still like Patty as an artist and activist. I don't think Patty's a grifter or anything like that. I think Patty is a human. I know that Patty themselves is a persona, but the person behind it is a human. And humans get frustrated and react on emotion and fall back on their community. And as someone who exists online, I rely on my little community too sometimes when I feel alone. And while we can get into a conversation about parasocial relationships and stuff, I do still think it was really good that Patty asked her community to be peaceful and all of that. But I still don't think either party is completely right or wrong in this situation. I do think that this trademark case is more than a bit of a distraction overall, and I don't mean that Patagonia is trying to distract from anything, and I don't think Patty is trying to distract from anything. But what I mean is that it is a bit of a resource sink in an unfortunate place for both Patagonia and Patty overall, especially since both of them are entities that value protecting the planet. And that is where I hope to see both the company Patagonia and the performer Pattie Gonia able to focus their energy again in the very near future. So that's all I have for you today. If you found any value here at all, please consider giving this video a like. I do plan on having an accompanying Substack article to go with this video, so go check out my Substack, y'all. If you have thoughts you would like to contribute to this conversation, this is a complicated conversation, and I do think that we need to talk about it, especially for those of us who like both Patagonia and Patty and feel so conflicted right now. Please put those comments down into that comment section below. I'm gonna be looking for them. Maybe even share the video or whatever you want to do. I think this is a conversation that is worth having, because I don't like seeing entities that share values essentially fight against one another. And no, I'm not saying this is infighting or anything like that. I do think this is a serious legal issue, but I just I think that we get so distracted and hung up on things that even anyone, even if they agree at core levels, can end up cannibalizing one another, for lack of a better term. I'm sorry. It's been a long video, y'all. So if you want to see more of me and my content, it's not always this long, and sometimes it's even less tangenty. Consider clicking that side. Excuse me. Please click that subscribe button. Maybe even flirt with that cute little bell so you get notifications when I post. I do like to post a little short every morning, telling you good morning, giving you a quick update, and reminding you to be kind to yourself and that you are not alone, because we are in crazy times right now. But I'm gonna go ahead and release y'all. If you've made it this far, if you've been with me this long into the video, I love you. That is fantastic. But please have a wonderful rest of your day, afternoon, evening, what have you, and I will see you all in the next one.